What's a job that most people wouldn't know actually exists? Food expert witness. Some guy gets paid around $300 an hour to explain food to a jury. I was really shocked to learn that it wasn't Anthony Bourdain. I'm a prop shopper for a popular TV show. Basically, I show up to work. The designer will tell me that the show needs a specific prop for the taping and it's my job to go buy or rent it. It's a fun job because they ask you to get ridiculous stuff sometimes and it's a challenge to find it. My dad used to shoot wildlife, mainly birds, that would wander on airport runways. He was replaced with a falcon. I once met a woman from China at the airport in Frankfurt while waiting for my plane. When I asked her what her plans in Europe were, she told me she is a personal shopper. Apparently many companies won't ship to a lot of places in China and the people there don't trust that the local shops actually sell the original products and instead sell knockoffs of name brand fashion merchandise. Additionally, Chinese men often won't let their wives travel without them, so the wives can't go shop for themselves. Instead they hire someone else to travel to places like Paris, New York or California and give them a list of dresses, purses, etc. that they want. Sounded like an awesome job to me. Get paid to travel and shop. She said she made decent money, too, and that often her customers would pay for her to buy things for herself on top of that as a tip. When companies have paperwork that they want to make digital, the documents need to be scanned. Before this can happen, someone needs to go through all of the documents and remove every single staple, and that's how I spent my summers while I was in college. I actually liked it quite a bit though. I once worked for a newborn photography agency as a bereavement coordinator. The rest of the company centered around photos of newborns taken in the hospital after their birth. But I dealt with the non-profit side of the business. Essentially, my job was to sort through hospital photos taken of babies that were either miscarried or stillbirths that died in the hospital, choose the best photos and do some light corrections. Get them printed and create a memorial packet for the parents that was then sent to the hospital's bereavement program for any parent that wanted the photos. Or, as friends would sometimes say, I looked at dead babies all day. There is even a non-profit organization that makes tiny outfits that the babies can be dressed in, even the tiny little fetuses. Not a job for everyone, but I liked the solitude and the sense of providing a heartfelt service for grieving parents. The only time I was ever really emotionally affected by my job was when we found out about a family losing all 3 of their children in a tornado. As luck would have it, their children had all been born at a hospital we serviced. 2 of the children were in the digital archive, but the older one's photo had been taken with film. I spent 3 days in our storage warehouse going through film to find that baby's newborn photo to create a packet for the parents so they would at least have their children's newborn photos again. I can't even imagine the sense of loss they felt at literally losing everything. But I hope getting those photos provided a small sense of solace for them. Edit. It really warms my heart to hear from the people that were touched by a service like this. As one Redditor said, I don't really know much on what goes on the other side, but I cherish getting to hear everyone's experience that feels comfortable in sharing it. It is one of those things where you hope no one ever has to experience the need for it. But if it happens to you, it's consoling to know it's there. My heart is with all the parents that lost babies. If I could give all of you a hug, I would. Less than 3. Edit 2. As many wonderful people have mentioned in the comments, if anyone is interested in doing something similar, the non-profit organization, Now I'll Lay Me Down to Sleep, provides this service to parents through volunteers. I am not personally affiliated with them and this is not the company I worked for, but they provide a similar service. I compose music and design sound effects for slots. I live in Vegas, but still, few people outside of the slot industry know my job exists. Makes for a bit of interesting conversation. When certain, highly expensive pieces of jewelry are sold to buyers in different countries, say a $300,000 watch, for example, oftentimes the company selling the watch will send someone to wear it on the plane over to said buyer country, since to import it would cost them a lot in taxes, but to pay for someone to wear it as their own watch costs significantly less. London Underground employs people to walk along their lines above ground and look for building sites they haven't been told about. Anyone building anything nearby is supposed to consult him at the planning stage. But sometimes these things slip through and it's better to catch it at that stage rather than have someone drill into a line. Makes sense when you think about it. But not a job I'd ever thought of. Not sure whether it's one person's full-time job or a shift that people rotate through. My father is an architect. He employs someone whose entire job is to straighten his lines. Edit. I get it. It's whose. Sorry it happens. A non-Jewish person. Who does certain tasks that Jewish people aren't allowed to do on the Sabbath? X. Push elevator buttons. Since Jewish people aren't allowed to do that. Edit. Holy dear Lord. I'm no expert on the issue. Nor do I care to become one either. PLZ stop sending me what Judaism technically says on the matter. I truly don't care at all. I met a professional alpaca shaver when I was on holiday last month. He told me he gets about $35 per shaved alpaca. Fun fact. Alpacas make a cute humming sound and only poop in certain areas in an effort to stay clean. Trucking companies employ people whose job it is to recover abandoned trucks and cargo. Apparently truckers will just be like duck it and leave their trucks and trailers on the side of a road. These companies pay pretty well and you are on call 24/7. But they fly you all over the country to retrieve their stuff and pay well. Sounds kinda neat really. Edit. Should be whose and not whose. I need a scapegoat so I'm blaming my phone. It definitely wasn't my inability to pay attention to my own writing while using mobile. Sorry guys. I suck. A person who travels around checking that gas stations actually pump 1 gallon of gas when the pump shows that 1 gallon has been pumped. Friend of a friend in Nashville just writes hooks. He gets sent partially finished songs, a beat or a verse, and writes a hook to it. I think in general most everyday listeners will be surprised to know how many different hands and minds are often involved in top 40 music. There was a strip club with a pawn shop and private viewing booths near my work. We had a delivery nearby, and one of our drivers would stop about 5 AM in their parking lot and take smoke breaks, or so he said. Apparently one day he got there a little earlier than normal, and there was a girl driving around the parking lot picking up used condoms, and that was her job. Every night, she would be on cleaning detail at the club, and about 3 AM she'd go outside to pick up the used condoms in the parking lot for an hour. Our driver talked to her and she said it was pretty disgusting, but she was just trying to pay the bills. So that girl's job became known as the worst job in the world. Whenever people got really down about working for our company, it was always nice to have that story to throw out there. It was an immediate morale booster. It's cheaper to have one person digitally paint over and remove a boner in post than it is to hold production on a film set. Some people call it scrotoscoping. Once got paid for a month of 40-hour work weeks for sitting at a gate and watching to make sure no cows got out. I was a bovine identification and exit prevention specialist. Never saw a ducking cow. Read some good books, though. Ballet class pianist. I think the only people that know about my job are dancers teachers. Basically I sit in for the hour-and-a-half class and play short songs for the students to dance to. The main difficulty is picking the right song for a given combination. 3-stroke 4 or 4-stroke 4, smooth or percussive, accent on the first last beat. Also, the measures have to be a multiple of 16 or it won't fit and the dancers get confused and the teacher looks at me angrily and I can't sleep at night. Really fun job though. Most teachers will let you play whatever you want, as long as it works for the dance. I'll go from a Chopin nocturne to ragtime to improvising to Final Fantasy X to Gershwin, and look at pretty dancers. Surprisingly, no one wants to hear anything from the Nutcracker. They've all heard it a few thousand times and are heartily sick of it. There are guys on call 24/7 to pick up organs from a donor at the hospital and drive it to the airport. I know a guy who did this for years and made bank. He had a specialist to show to police if he was caught speeding. The thing that drove him to quit was a work friend of his who didn't keep it quiet. The friend told everyone about his cool job and cooler of kindness and such. He nearly got killed when someone robbed him for the organs. Not long after that happened, my guy had a flight cancel and he had to take a cooler with a heart back to his house. Not long after that he decided it wasn't worth the risk to his family. If you're white and happen to be in China, you can do white monkey gigs. That's the term used to describe jobs in which white people are hired by Chinese companies to do random jobs to enhance its image. Foreigners equals international equals connection equals money. These jobs include pretending to play instruments in a fake band at gigs, being a fake emissary of Barack Obama, pretending to live at a luxury apartment complex, posing as the company director at a ribbon cutting ceremony, nodding and smiling at business meetings. I seriously have the job of trying to contact people who place orders on a very popular website and then try to cancel their card before it actually gets charged. See, we don't charge until right before the item ships, which is sometimes a day or two. Some people have figured out that occasionally, not even close to every time, but occasionally one will slip out and ship before we've actually charged the card. There are literally thousands of people out there who go on our site, make a purchase, and then try to cancel or somehow block the charge going through and hope that the product will ship out. I call 2540 people per day trying to get them to update their payment method. Sometimes it's honestly innocent and you can always tell, like their card expired or got lost during the interim. But most of them play stupid and hang up on you. Also, it's my job to investigate people who say they never received their shipment and ask for a refund reship. No, this is not loss prevention. Loss prevention is its own separate department. I'm in a department called exceptions. I appreciate the guesses, but I'm not going to name the company I work for. So even if you've gotten it right, I'm not going to tell you. Most graveyard jobs are actually pretty chill. Your manager isn't breathing down your neck and you generally don't have to deal with other people. It's not really a normal job, but my entire job responsibility is to change light bulbs around campus. A normal shift for me involves driving out to 2 or 3 buildings and replacing all the light bulbs in the building, whether they are burnt out or not. I do it on a rotating 6-month schedule. I'm also on call if there are any light bulbs reported as burned out. I don't fix broken ballasts or sockets. That job belongs to someone else. I only replace bulbs. It's primarily fluorescent tubes, though we still do have some incandescent bulbs in a few areas. The unburned bulbs, and all bulbs, are properly disposed of. I just package them in big barrels and send them to our hazardous waste department. You'd be surprised at just how many of these bulbs are nearing the end of their lifespan after 6 months. While it is wasteful, it's important for the university to maintain appearances. Important enough to swallow that cost, I guess. Cantor. It's the person at a church, or other place where there is singing, who stands in the front and makes hand motions to help people know when to sing a higher or lower note. They're there to help people who can't read music, or to assist those like me who can read music but are a little rusty. The act of being a cantor is called canting. You have to be able to cant to be a cantor. You can't cant if you can't cant. If you're old enough, you remember little 3x5 index cards in the card catalog used to find the books on the shelves in a library. I type those little cards. Underwear cockroach inspector. Guy or gal in a factory, inspecting garments for insects before they get shipped out to the retailers. It's a thing. The guys at Unicode who approve new images. I used to work as a book conservator. I sat around and fixed books. It's sort of like being a doctor, but for books. All sorts of bad things can happen to a book. Most of them get broken spines. Their pages get ripped or fall out. Their covers come off. Dogs chew on them. Or some shat cuts all the nudie pictures out of them. Book conservators fix them up and send them back out. Book conservators do other things too. Many books printed in the 20th century were printed on acidic paper. The acid in the paper eats up the fibers and the book falls to dust. This is called brittle book syndrome, sort of like boneritis. Book conservators can also take these books apart and have the pages scanned so the information isn't lost. Book conservators put protective covers on pamphlets, sheet music, magazines, and stabilize single sheet printing. Head conservation experts will work on really old stuff like medieval manuscripts, papyrus, and other special collections type of material. Finally, book conservationists step in during disasters and try to limit the damage, especially with water events. The books get dried out to prevent mold formation, although if mold sets in, conservationists vacuum it out and rebind the volume. Bad things are always happening to books, and being a book conservator is really satisfying. I wish I still did it. It was my favorite job in the world. There's a job called Hand Angel, and their job is to give hand jobs to people with disabilities. Note that this is completely different from prostitution. Edit. Was on vacation for a whole month and realized my comment blew up. What I meant by this is completely different from prostitution is that in some parts of the world it is covered in the medical care and in the wellness program. I'm not an expert in this field, I just saw something on TV once. But the reasoning behind it is about sexual frustration and mental well-being. The major difference between this and prostitution is that most people are capable, while may not be as satisfying, to take care of their sexual needs. While it is not an option for those with disability, at least some. I'm not a hand angle myself, but I'm sure if you do a AMA with one they can explain it better than I can. There's also a quote on how many times they can receive this service like all other medical benefits. I believe there's also a NGO that does it in parts of Asia. If you don't believe me, try Google. I've worked at radio stations before. We have a guy whose entire job is to decide when we play each particular song. It's not random or the DJ deciding to play the music. Rather a pretty exact science with specialized software and a ton of rules to create the perfect mix. Edit. Spelling. Service to drive people with a fear of bridges over the bridge in their own vehicles. A friend of mine's grandfather worked as a parachute tester in World War I. Back before technology and safety regulations were a thing. Edit. I just did some googling, and amazingly, the US Army still employs test jumpers today. Our side of the office is IB Human Research. Across the aisle are our IACUC friends. Once had a study where Group A had to wear the same white shirt 24/7 for a whole week. No showering or washing of any kind. No deodorants. No perfumes. They have to record every item of food and drink they consumed while wearing the shirt, then turn in the shirt in a Ziploc bag. Group B had to sniff these shirts and answer survey questions. That's probably the most out there study I can remember. I was honestly shocked to learn that people stream video games and make a decent living off of it. I understand winning competitive tournaments, sure, but just like playing games and having people give you money because they want to watch you play games was a foreign concept to me. I think my job is fairly interesting and fairly obscure. Ever have a dentist put a crown or bridge in your mouth? Ever wonder where they come from? He doesn't make them. They're custom made by a dental laboratory. I'm a dental lab technician who does a myriad of tasks. Server operators. They only exist if something goes wrong. Food stylist. They make the food in advertisements look better than they are. Collecting concrete samples from job sites as it's being poured so that it could be tested in a lab for strength. Foley artists. These are the people that record everyday life sounds for movies. Footsteps, wrinkling paper, opening soda cans, typing on a keyboard, literally everything. All that sound is recreated in sound studios. Underwater lumberjacks. Harvest old growth trees that have been covered over by diverted dammed waterways. Facade engineer. I rappel abseil down the outside of 40+ story buildings to inspect them for problems. I make sure bits don't fall off, work out why buildings are leaking and set up schedules for repairs. Online exam proctor. Education has been moving online just like other industries. But when your exams are all on the school website and the students can access them literally from any location with an internet connection, how do you make sure they aren't cheating? Folks like me and my co-workers. That's how. We monitor your students via webcam and screen sharing software while they take their tests. I've caught a lot of college students trying to cheat on their exams, and have also been able to back up students when situations beyond their control have cropped up. Examples. School website goes down for unannounced maintenance during the exam. Student has to get up and leave the testing area because a fire alarm is going off and they're evacuating the building. Student is an on-call nurse and had to leave mid-exam to deal with an emergency. Student's laptop decided to force an update to Windows 10 mid-exam. Student lost power mid-exam due to weather. Student connected with us at their scheduled time for the exam, but the instructor had sent us incorrect information regarding the exam, so we were unable to access it for the student. One of the exam questions requires information from a graph or other image and the image is missing. It's not uncommon for students who are taking an exam through our service for the first time to say something along the lines of "I had no idea you could even do this." Home Depot sales associate. I swear they're in there somewhere. Turn signal installer at BMW. Livestock ranching wrangling. GS 5035 7/9. It's a federal civil service cowboy. I work at an institutional review board, better known as an IB. Most vague job description ever. I review paperwork to support human research studies. Had no idea these places existed when I applied. Was hired as a blank slate and been here 5 years now. The poo fairy. What? You think you can just flush away your poo and it just disappears? Nah man. That's my job. You're welcome. I work in real estate development, and when I first started out I learned what an expediter does. They basically make careers out of dealing with red tape that comes with filing for building permits. Late. So no one will see this. But I do safety, security and content moderation for an online children's game. Most people seem surprised that it's a thing. I basically read lines of chat from our game all day long and punish kids for breaking rules and adjust the filters to prevent them from being able to break rules in the first place. Blowjobs. For the typical Redditor, they remain an urban legend. I raise money for hospitals. I get paid to play golf and take people to lunch. And kiss ass. Legions of ass. There are at least 100 people in my office who doctors contract to verify your insurance benefits so the doctor's office staff doesn't have to. Essentially, we call your insurance company, ask them if the medication procedure you need is covered and how much it'll cost, and then we send a report to your doctor's office. My dad does credentialing for a large hospital network. Essentially, he makes sure that doctors are actually doctors. A lot of his job is contacting schools and other hospitals to confirm that a new hire actually studied or had residence there. I was talking to a dad in my scout troop a few years back who said that one summer while he was in college he got hired by the government to drive along freeways and verify that mile markers were accurate. They paid for his gas and lodging. So he basically just road tripped with 2 of his friends for the whole summer and earned a profit. I know someone who is an agent for pets. When you see a pet on TV they have an agent, and she does that. Phase 3 clinical trials. Healthy people paid to be guinea pigs for drug testing. Edit. Few Redditors explained that this is Phase 1, really, and Phase 3 is with patients to assess effectiveness. You know that some shoes are laced, and you know that usually the laced shoes are laced in a crisscross pattern? And do you know these little plastic things at the end of shoelaces? I forgot about the job. Planetary Protection Officer. Sounds like a kinda awesome job title. Even if it's only about making sure that we don't contaminate other planets with Earth microbes when landing or crashing spacecraft on them. In Japan, my wife got a job as designated foreigner at weddings. Apparently they like the idea of foreigners at their weddings as it makes the photos more interesting. She used to earn up to 20,000 yen a day. Also met a Canadian guy there who had a job as designated foreigner at bar. He used to get pissed and make conversation with salarymen. I work in a hospital calibrating and repairing all the equipment. Most of the field will be retiring in the next 10 years and healthcare is only expanding. And you only need a 2-year associate's degree in biomedical equipment repair to get in. Edit. Here is an article on a salary survey from last year. BMETI would be the starting level. I fly falcons at an airport to control pest bird species.